You're free. Do you feel it? Yeah. When you hear a song like that, doesn't it just make you feel free? Like you are just ready to just open up and just fly? Yeah, thank you. You guys, that was just amazing. So, on the heels of that, I have a quote I want you to read with me. It's from a gentleman in Moscow by Amor Towles. He says, "Our lives are steered by uncertainties, many of which are disruptive or even daunting. But if we persevere and remain generous of heart, we may be granted a moment of supreme lucidity, a moment in which all that happens to us suddenly comes into focus as a necessary course of events, even as we find ourselves on the threshold of a bold new life that we have meant to lead all along." Isn't that amazing? So, obviously, this is not meant for our lives particularly. It's a story, it's a novel, but here's the thing. This so speaks to us today. You know, we have been in an uncertain state of living for a couple of years now, and it has been disruptive at times, it has been daunting at times, and we have persevered, have we not? We have persevered, and it says, when we do so with a generous heart, we may be granted a moment of supreme lucidity. So if you give me the next quote, thank you. So lucid means suffused with light, having full use of one's faculties, clear and understandable. But I want to point you to the word full use. All of you, not just a part of you, not just, and Eric was just talking about, not just the reactionary part of you that reacts to the world, not even just the you that drifts off into meditation, because they must come together in order to be really fully lucid, to be clear and understandable, to use every aspect of your mind for a bold new life, he says. Meant that you've been meant to live all along. And it's not that somebody somewhere said, Robbie Gilman, this is the life we've chosen for you to live. That's not the case. Robbie found his passion, and he's been living it ever since I've known him, and probably your whole life, right? Yeah. So that's really what that's about. Finding your passion, finding what works for you, and then being willing to actually live it out loud. So one of my questions to you this morning is, are you ready for a bold new life? Are you willing to have a bold new life? And it doesn't mean you have to change one damn thing in your life to have it. It just means you have to live it boldly. And do you know why some of us are not living our lives boldly? Because we're actually not living the life we were meant to live. We're actually not doing what we're passionate about. And so we don't live that boldly because maybe we just have a job that's paying our bills, and we will get around to living that amazing life at some point. And then I'm 20, I'm 30, I'm 40, I'm 50, I'm 60, 70, 80, 90. I'm looking at it from above. So the question is, are you willing to live the life you are living right now so boldly that you will ask the right questions of what does and does not fit? As we conclude this month of action, you will take the action to ask yourself, does this work for me? So in the lyrics it says, and the world becomes a fantasy, and you're more than you could ever be because you're dreaming with your eyes wide open. Dreams are not just meant for you to go to sleep on or to happen in your sleep. Dreams are meant to be infused into your life at all times, awake or asleep. And in fact, the title of my talk today is Eyes Wide Open. And it's not just about your physical eyes. It's about what's behind those physical eyes. Are you willing to be wide awake? See what's going on in your life. Notice when you're unhappy. Notice when you're sad. Notice if you feel constricted. Really notice those things. And as Eric said, not just go turn on a television to salve it, but to actually be there and say, yeah, I'm feeling this right now. Why? What is mine to feel? What is this feeling about? And it's not about beating yourself up either, to be very honest. It's not about tracing it back and going, I should have done this better, I should have done that better. Get rid of your shoulds. We have shoulded on ourselves way too much. It is time for us to stop blaming ourselves, but to start living ourselves, really living ourselves. So when I was preparing the class, I was like, oh gosh, I'm going to have to go into this. So I teach advanced consciousness. This is my second year of teaching this course, and I had a huge aha this year teaching this course and teaching a specific night when I taught this thing called lucid dreaming. And Amit Goswami, in the Everything Answer book, teaches quantum activism and how to really get your mind action-oriented to live in this world as real metaphysicians, as real quantum activists, as someone that knows who they are, what they're here to do, and does it. Because all those things are all great, but until the does it comes in, you kind of like just live it in that world of the ethereal. So if you can give me this next quote. This is Amit Goswami. He says, in lucid dreams, we can use the dream state for developing solutions to problems. Because you have a mind, believe it or not, that works 24/7. So talk about dreaming with your eyes wide open. You are dreaming with your mind wide open. Just because your body rests doesn't mean your mind is resting. And I'm not saying your brain. You're giving your brain a respite. But your mind, your consciousness, that's always going. How many of you remember your dreams? Okay, good. You know how the rest of you will remember your dreams? Tell yourself, I'm going to remember my dreams before you go to bed. Literally. So in lucid dreams, we can use the dream state for developing solutions to problems. So I taught this. I was teaching this on a Thursday night, and it's very hard to get to bed after teaching that class. It's very hard. So I'm up usually till 12, 1 o'clock in the morning and doing homework and uploading things. But that night, when I went to bed, there was something that I really wanted to work out. And so I told myself, work it out while you're sleeping. Because, I do believe, what's my phrase that I always use? Multitasking is the enemy of efficiency. But I thought I could sleep and work it out simultaneously. I could get some rest and still work at the same time. So the next quote, lucid dreams are dreams in which you are aware, we are aware that we are dreaming and therefore able to guide the dream to some extent. Now here's the funny part. We teach in Science of Mind that we have the capacity to direct our thinking, to guide our lives based on how we think and believe, yes? We can do it in our dreams too. Because your mind needs to be used 100%, awake or asleep. And I'm not talking about just, are you not paying attention? I'm actually talking about when you're asleep. So I'm teaching this class, and I'm looking at all of this stuff, and I decided to give myself some directions to work it out while I was sleeping. And let me tell you about the next part of this lucid wakefulness. Being aware of the moment of waking. Seeing yourself in both states simultaneously. Lucid wakefulness can happen in the transition between sleep and wakefulness. So, I go to bed that night, and I had this thought that I wanted to deal with. So I go to bed, and I go to sleep. And I promised myself when I woke up, I would not jump up, get out of bed. I never get out of bed and go to my emails. I always try to do something much more spiritual and relaxing. So I go to bed, I fall asleep, and when I wake up, I was right in the middle of a dream that was dealing with the exact issue I was asking about. So I just stayed there. I just laid there. I was like, okay, and I fell right back asleep. picked it up right where I was, but I was consciously aware that I was laying in bed waiting for the dream to finish so I could get up. But while I'm here, let me tell you how this needs to resolve itself. This is all just after that Thursday night class. So I lay there and I go back, fall back asleep. I resolved it. I woke up and I was like, oh my God, that's what that dream was about. I had such lucidity, such clarity. I went into the kitchen and told Kevin exactly what I had just figured out. And he said he wished I'd have figured it out a long time ago.
So I didn't have to multitask.
But, thank you. But the purpose of my talk this morning is to get us to live our lives with our eyes wide open all the time. All the time. And ultimately, your mind is the greatest tool to discover who you truly are. And if any of you have ever done any Jungian psychology, psychiatry, therapy, you'll know that there's so much richness in your dream state. But I'd like to move it from the dream state. I do want you to try this. Talk to yourself before you go to bed, and don't jump out of bed when you wake up. Let yourself figure out what you're doing. Just listen. Your mind is so infinite in structure. It has the ability to literally know everything there is to know. Do you know that? You already know everything there is to know. You've just cluttered it up with a lot of stuff you don't need to know. But in your dream state, in that amazing lucid state, you get to live with an understanding of the infinity of the universe, and you get to walk through your life with that kind of potentiality. So the mind that you have is your greatest discovery. But you know, it's not just about understanding what you see out there. It's about understanding who you are in here. That's really the greatest frontier. Mankind has been trying for centuries to figure all of this stuff out. And we're getting better at it and better. Science is growing. We're getting more expansive. But the journey's inward. What's in here? And the thing is, when you go in here to see what's in here, what's back of it all is what I'm most fascinated with. And the word I use for that is intuition. Intuit. That thing that is me. It's Scott. It's Sally. It's Joselito. It's every single one of us. And when we all back into it, we're all in that oneness. And it's a beautiful place to be. But that oneness, that infinite knowing, that infinite intelligence, that wisdom is constantly individuating itself as each one of us. And it's intuition. And it tells us things. And it guides us because it is us. And it's saying, Sally, move, take action, take flight, jump, risk, because in the end there are no risks. There's just knowing. So that's, to me, what intuition is all about. And you know who was brilliant at that? P.T. Barnum. And I know this because I played him. So I know his whole inner life. But you know what's funny? When I did play P.T. Barnum, one critic wrote that I played him way too nice. That I played him as a very confident, how did they put it? They made it seem like I didn't realize that Barnum was such a mean person. And I'm like, that's not how I see him. I don't think anybody saw him like that except the people that were having a problem with the people he was showing. So it's very interesting. P.T. Barnum is a great example for me of somebody who really had all of those ideas. And this song, of course, was sung by P.T. Barnum in the movie, what was it called? The Greatest Showman. And he's singing, dreaming with your eyes wide open. And that's really what I want us to get to today and come away with. That's our teaching, dreaming with our eyes wide open. We do not stick our heads in the ground. I know what's happening in the world. I know what's happening in the Ukraine. I read my papers. I know what's happening. I know when children are starving. I know there are atrocities going on all around me in this world that we live in. Am I going to just turn away from that and pretend that's not there? No, I am not. But I'm going to look at it with my eyes wide open, not just by reacting to it. but to come to it with an understanding that love will lead the way. And then I can take action. So give me the next slide. Thank you. So Ernest Holmes said this: intuition is God in man, revealing to him the realities of being. Just as instinct guides the animal, so would intuition guide man, if he would allow it to operate through him. So there is something inside of you that is ready, willing, able, that's just bubbling up, that wants you to go around living with your eyes wide open. It wants you to sleep with your eyes wide open. It wants you to know your mind so incredibly that you couldn't possibly not know who you are. And I know we all have opportunities. We all have many opportunities to be told differently, be shown that we're not perfect. Has anybody had anything happen this week that showed them that they weren't perfect? No. Okay, one of you. All of us. We do things, we fall off ladders. I didn't. We fall, we trip, we fall. We make mistakes. Some people marry the wrong people. Anybody here marry the wrong person at any point? Actually, you haven't. You married the right person for the time. The people that are really suffering are the ones that don't realize that now it's not the right time and I need to move on. Divorce is not a failure. Divorce is a way for someone to literally manifest what is best for them as it goes forward. That's the truth. But we've made all of these rules up, and we've agreed to all these paradigms. And I think it's time for us to open our eyes wider, wider, wider than we ever had. Would you go back to the Ernest Holmes quote? In the Ernest Holmes quote, if you could go back, thank you. When you look at the end of this, if he would allow it to operate through him. So intuition is God in man, revealing to him the realities of being. Just as instinct guides the animal, so would intuition guide man if he would allow it to operate through him. I'd like to change the word allow. I would like you to encourage it to move through you. I would like you to purposefully invite and encourage intuition to move through you. I would love for you to have your heart so expanded, so opened. You know, as we've lost a great Thich Nhat Hanh, although I've been reading up on what's happening since his death at his monasteries, and there's a beautiful, I guess it's something on their walls that he wanted there for when he would pass, which is that I have not died, I am in the cloud. I don't think he meant the cloud on the internet, by the way. But that he is in the air, in everything. Nothing's ever destroyed. Energy cannot be destroyed or created. So it's always here, always right here. So is intuition. You want to know why you're not taking action? Because you're not listening. If you are not taking action to make your life an even more amazing life, then you're not listening. Because at all times, there is an intuitive presence, an intuitive knowing moving through you that is basically saying to you, Joe, this is for you. Dreaming with your eyes wide open. That's our job. So, my question today is to ask you this. What are you willing to see differently? What are you willing to see differently? Very often we live in this world where we got our routines. We know what we're doing. We know who this person is, what this person, we're even pretty sure what they're going to talk about when we see them. What if you didn't? What if you saw it all differently? And you know why you can see it all differently? Because I believe there's a way for all of us to see ourselves differently. And if I see myself differently, I'm going to see the world differently. Because I only see the world based on the way I believe the world is. And if I believe the world is scary, then I see things to be frightened in everywhere I go. But if I believe the world to be loving, at its deepest root, loving, then I can find that wherever I go. I may even find it in someone who's very upset or angry at me, but I'll still see it because that's what I believe. So when he says, allow it to operate through you, yes, that's true. It's like right after what Eric and I talked about. You can allow it to, and that'll be awesome, but encourage it to. Give yourself the gift of saying, yes, I am willing to know more, to be more. I'm willing to know, there's that great song of Ricky Byers, Use Me. And I've always had a problem with that because it's so dualistic. Use me, God. But you know what? I know what God is. I don't worry about the word anymore. I don't have to translate it back to something else. I like the word God. I like saying I am God because it explains to me that I am that loving presence. I am that energy. And when Ricky sings that song, use me, oh God, I stand for you. That's what Ernest Holmes taught. Use me. Use every ounce of me. Take me to the last breath in my life and let my last breath be the most amazing breath I've ever had. We were talking, somebody said to me about death. We were talking about death, and they said, so you're pretty sure you're going to live into your hundreds, right? I said, yeah, I am. I'm thinking 120 now. I am. And I'm going to look just like this because doctors are getting better at that. No, I'm going to be healthy and vibrant, and that's what I am knowing. And this person was so funny. They were like, but didn't you say, well, you don't want me to live to 120? Because then you'll be 113.
That's just so you can say you're at middle age right now.
Yeah, I'm in middle age. No, that would be 134. So this person said to me, and you're convinced that you are going to die on a beach, in a chair. You're probably going to have a nice blanket around you, and all your family, your children, your grandchildren, everybody's going to be there. And you're going to be watching the ocean and the sunset, and you're just going to move off into the next, whatever's next for you. And I was like, well, let me just ask you this. What would you want me to know for my last moment? I'm in a hospital, hooked up to a lot of things. No, I don't want that. Does anybody want that? No. You can choose. That's what's in my mind. This person said, except you may be living in the desert at that time. Because Kevin wants to finally retire to the desert in about 10 or 20 years. And I was like, we'll have a house on the ocean. I said, no, I will get to the ocean. He said, well, if you're 120 and you're, all of a sudden you're like, I think it's coming. We need to move to the ocean. So, what are you willing to see differently? It's a good question. It requires you to take a look at your life. It requires you to be honest about your life. Really. Really honest about your life. What's working, what isn't working. All those changes you want to make, you have to ask yourself, why am I not making them? All those things you want to do in life, you have to ask yourself, why am I not doing them? I know growing up in the Catholic Church, we had a big respect for this thing called delaying gratification. You all remember that? Yeah, they taught it in Catholic grade school. You got to delay gratification until you're worthy of it. Delay gratification until you're dead. I've never been for that. And I don't think you should be either. Whatever you are delaying, you must ask yourself, why am I delaying it? Are you willing to live your life with your eyes wide open? So lucid living, just to be clear, lucid living is understanding that every aspect of your life has an awareness, not only of what's out here, but an awareness of what's in here and behind it. And I believe it is possible for us to live our lives in a state of lucidity, where I am listening to what Joselito is saying to me, and this is how we train practitioners, by the way, to learn that I'm going to listen to what Joselito is saying to me in this conversation. I'm also aware of what I'm thinking about what he's saying, because those thoughts you can't help your mind but thinking as you're listening. And then I'm also aware of something greater than my own personal mind that is coming through at the same time. And if I'm able to do that, then I have just expanded myself into this amazing experience of living life on such a higher level of consciousness. That's lucid living. So I do hear you. I do see you. I do know what I think about what I'm seeing and who I'm seeing. And I also know the absolute truth, what's behind it all. So yes, can I read the newspaper and look at what's going on in the world? Yes, I can. And I can look at what I'm thinking about it. And sometimes it does make me sad. If I see a child that's been hurt in a war-torn country, my heart just breaks. I want to get on a plane and go over there and help. But then I also know what's going to change that in the world. You know what's going to change that? You and me. Changing the way we use our minds. Because if we can take all of the anger, all of the blame, all of the discourse out of our everyday lives, imagine the ripple effect that will be. I was listening to someone give a talk about what Ernest Holmes said when he said, show me someone who is for something and against nothing. And this was a very prominent CSL minister. And when he was giving a talk, I was saying, no, he was wrong. It is time to us to be against things. And I was like, oh my God. No, it is not time for us to be against anything. I can go into a war-torn country and help children without being against anyone, but being for those children, being for peace, being for love. That is what Ernest Holmes taught. That is what Thich Nhat Hanh taught. That is what Jesus of Nazareth taught. That is who we are. And those are the eyes that need to get wide open. Do not be afraid to see what you see in the world, but look at it from the truth. And then do what you can do. So, I end my talk today with the same question I gave you a few moments ago, which is, what can you and what are you willing to see differently? And here's what I'm going to suggest, that the thing you are most willing to see differently is yourself. That you are willing to look in the mirror and see perfection at any age, in anybody, with all that's going on in your world, that you can see yourself with eyes wide open. Because if you see yourself the way I see you, and if you see me the way you see yourself, we are going to all be in this beautiful place of love only. And that is living with your eyes wide open. Namaste.